So you see my basic folder on my D drive. I'm going to go into exercise. And this is what we created the other day, right? We had a create exercise folder. We downloaded and brought in that OneDrive, which had the clips, right? I'm just jumping back out. And then when we created the project, this is what it creates. And it gives you this little icon, and we named it exercise, the date, and then the extension is the .prproj. That's a Premiere project. Now let me expand this a little bit. Okay, so this is, again, something that's important to know. Some of you may already know this. And you can see when you look at the project file, it's tiny, right? You can see the actual size that it takes up on your hard drive. It's only 19 kilobytes. Even though the clips that we brought in here on this OneDrive folder, you can see that the size is 250. Let me bring that up on properties, right? There it is. So it's got a few folders in there, and it's got 250 meg of clips. The stuff that we are bringing in tonight is going to be over, I think, like 3 gig, right? And so we'll take a look at that as we build that. And I'll explain why that is so small, even though it sort of encompasses those media clips. And then when you create a project file, it also Premiere creates these 2 folders. It's an autosave folder, right? And you can open that up, and you can see this is the default preferences, and we can take a look at those preferences real quickly. So it does an autosave. Most media projects, media programs will do that. Like Word does it. I mean, pretty much every application, I think, has an autosave. So you can see that this was saved about every 9-10 minutes. And then we probably just closed up. The last time it auto-saved was 8:30, and then I did a save when we closed out at the end of class, right? So these are backups. If in case you ever crash and you don't save, you at least have some of these that has saved your work, kind of like a history. And then these video previews, we're not going to have that many for Monday. These are what are called render files, right? You open these up, and you can see we did some very basic rendering. We didn't have a lot of effects, and they're not huge, but these can add up. Okay, this is what we did when had a yellow line at the top of the clips, and I converted that into green so it would play optimal. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and open this, right? So we can go directly to this and just double click it, and it's going to open up. So you don't have to go to Premiere, although you could go to Premiere and open up the application. You would be one of the recent projects that you worked on. Okay. So we're going to open this up and take a look at this. See if anybody else strolled in here. Is there anybody here that I did not call on attendance? Okay. Everybody was able to find their project file? Okay. This is important. This is why we create folders, we save it, we know where to go and find it. Okay, here we are. All right, so let's go back in here. Okay. Screen, let's just do the screen. Okay, let me size this down a little bit. Okay, so there is our project, right? So everybody can see what I've got, and there's my folder with all the clips. Okay, exercise source. There we go. We got project. Oh, so my workspace might be a little different. I think we were in this workspace. I think we created, right? Remember, so if you don't see the workspace from the other day, you probably do, but I probably maybe did something here. So we go Window, Workspace, And this should show us all the same workspace. Yeah, I think I clicked in on this and I probably did something later. So exercise day 1 summer, that's what we did on Wednesday. So I'm going to select that. It's going to reconfigure my workspace. There we go. Right. So we had source, program, project. I'm going to just slide the effects to the right there. Okay. And my sequence, which is in the timeline, tool palette, and audio. Okay. Okay. Everybody able to open up? Okay. And I think we look here, we can do different views. I'm going to go with my list view so I can open up these things so I can see my clips. All right. Okay. So, and I'm going to need to, hang on a second. We're going to also cross-reference some of this stuff on Blackboard, which we glanced at when we were ending on Monday. So some of this stuff that you see in this week 1 materials, it'll make more sense. Okay, here we go here. All right. You don't have to go to this. I'm just going to have it handy. So don't worry about going to Blackboard. Okay. All right. So we can bop back into that. Okay. All right. So, okay. So here we go. Let's go back in. So basically, so we saw that the project file is a small file. And then you have a number of things that you can do when you set up a sequence. Okay. Actually, we're going to do that when we set up the other project. Okay. So let's keep that alone. Okay. So basically you've got these media clips, right? Right. I'm pulling it up in the source. Right. That's what we worked with the other day. So these don't technically live in your project file, because if they did, then that would be much bigger, right? So these are actually linked when you import them. Okay, so these are and there's a hierarchy here when you bring those in, right? These clips become the master clips. Okay, what you're on your hard drive, that's your source media, right? So that's actually on your hard drive, right? And then when you import it, you create a link in your project panel to that source media. And then when you create an edit and you drop, a section of that clip into your sequence/timeline, then this becomes an instance or sometimes a reference. Okay, so that hierarchy, right? Master clip, reference, and then your source. So for example, if I were to click on keys 2 here in this sequence, if I delete it, yeah, okay, I deleted it. I'm going to put it back, Control Z, Command Z. But if I go to keys 2 here in the project panel, if I delete that, it's going to give me a question. It's gonna warning, right? And Premiere Smart, it says the selection you're deleting contains clip references in 1 or more sequences. If you continue these clip references, you will also be deleted. Do you want to continue? 99% of the time, you're going to say no. Unless you really want to get rid of it, then you say yes. So you say no, right? In case you do that. So because this is linked to this, and this is linked to the source media. Okay. So think of it as kind of like it's kind of like when you have a shortcut on your desktop, right, for one of your applications, right? That doesn't represent the application, but it allows you to launch that application. If you delete that shortcut, you're not deleting the program. So if you delete this, you're not deleting the source media unless you actually go into your hard drive and delete that, right? And so if you do that, this is what's going to happen. Hang on, let me share again. Okay, so again, this is the sort of theory under the hood. Let me pull up my my drive here, exercises. Okay, so if I'm open in this project, or even if I'm closed, and when I go back to open it, let me find that keys 2, right? Okay. So I'm going to delete it here in my hard drive. This is my source media. Okay, and there's no warning there because it doesn't care. It's just Windows, right? So now if I come back here, it's going to give me this, right? I've got this like 12 different languages, and it says media offline, and now it's saying missing media for these clips. Now I could try to find it. If I move it, it will usually do this. You can relink it, but this is damage control. So I'm not going to get too much farther into this, but I want you to understand that relationship. So now I've just canceled, and then this is what it looks like when you have a clip that is not connected to media. So it's still sort of sitting there in your timeline as a reference, but there's no actual media, right? Everything else is there because that's still connected, right? And then you have this big question mark, and that tells you that that's an offline clip, okay? All right, so there's some of that basic under the hood kind of stuff, okay? Reference big show. Okay, so let's take a look at, hang on a second. Let's go ahead and Blackboard, okay? Everybody seeing the Blackboard page now? Okay. All right, so we're gonna go on week 1. And by the way, I created, these were PowerPoints, and I went ahead and converted them into PDFs. So this little big picture presentation. So let me just go into the Windows one. Okay. And we're going to talk about this in a minute when we set up our first project. We have settings, project settings that we set up, and we can manipulate, we can customize, etc. In television in the United States, everything has to meet a standard because, yeah, obviously we're talking about a lot of different platforms this year, but TV broadcast is still a huge market, right? And so anything that we do for TV in the United States has to meet this standard. It's NTSC. If you've ever gone to like, Best Buys, and you are buying a TV, for example, a flat panel, if you ever look at some of the specs, some of the information, it will always say at some point NTSC, because it has to meet that standard. And that's what it stands for, National Television Standards Committee. Okay. And these are some of the attributes of the standard. Now, this would also be a standard in Europe. Europe has a different standard. It's called PAL. I forget what it actually stands for, right? They are not compatible. Of course, these days, everybody's just watching stuff on the internet, so it's not as relevant. But if you're creating something for that specific broadcast, country, then you have to meet those standards. So some of the attributes of NTSC and just basically video, we have what's called an aspect ratio, right? That's the shape of your frame. Traditional or the older standard standard aspect ratio, the standard definition was 4:3, and the new one is 16:9. So it's a little bit more rectangular. It's also bigger in pixels. Traditional frame rates were 30, but now these days you can shoot a lot of different frame rates with a lot of the cameras, 60, etc. This is the playback standard in USAA, and the time code is based on this technical sort of definition. This stands for Society Motion Picture Television Engineers. Timecode did not always exist in video. It really started existing, like, I'm trying to think, maybe early late 80s. When I first started editing, I didn't have timecode. And when I think back to not editing without timecode, it was a nightmare. But you get comfortable with the new technology. And then project proper settings, optimize video playback and compatibility of your source files. And we're going to talk about that when we do project 1. So let's go to the next page. We talked about the primary panels, right? Project panel, that's where we organize all our stuff, all our assets, video, music, audio, graphics, you name it, right? Everything has to come in there first, right? So those are master clips, master files. Your monitor windows, your source and program. The timeline, it's a panel, and then your video moves left to right. We saw that the other day, so that's not breaking news. Now the timeline window is also what houses the sequence down here, right? And so here's the file relationships we were just talking about. What makes a project? Project file, think of it as a suitcase. The media file, the actual data, right? So that's why we have those folders, organize the source media, and then create a project, bring in, import the clip, and we have a master clip reference in the project panel and instance in, well, actually, technically, the master clip is actually in the project panel. I should probably clean that up a little bit. And the instance is the timeline. Then the sequence is the organization of clips that lives in the timeline, right? And those are basically thumbnails connected to that master clip in the project panel, okay? And so you can have multiple sequences in a timeline, okay? Let's keep going. And here's timecode, right? So this is kind of review, right? So timecode gives us that definite ability to time and measure things, right? Every frame is an address. The timecode is like an address for every frame, right? We count hours, minutes, seconds, and frames, but when we look at the number, we count from right to left, right? Frames, seconds, minutes, hours. Think of a sprocket holes in film, right? Time, duration, clip or sequence, facilities, and it allows us to be accurate, right? To the point of a 30th of a second, right? Because 30 frames equal a second, right? And then basic editing, which is what we did the other night, and we're going to do a lot more tonight. It's basically decision making, right? When you're editing, you're just taking raw material and you're refining it, selecting what you want and putting it in your timeline. Rough editing is the basic assembly of elements, just shots in order. That's what basically we're going to do tonight, and you're going to finish through the weekend, and then we'll finalize that, refine it on Tuesday, okay? Then final editing, again, you sort of finalizing. We're going to add like a title and, some countdown and fade to black at the end and just kind of clean it up. But more complex projects, which we'll get into, like project 2, 3, etc., then we'll include more graphics and effects. Desktop editing, this is actually known as non-destructive editing or non-linear editing, because if we delete something, it's not gone, right? We delete something in the timeline, it's not gone unless you delete your source file on your hard drive. And non-linear means you don't have to necessarily edit from beginning to end. And this was revolutionary when we came from analog tape to tape, tape-based editing. Back in the old days, you had to start from the beginning to the end. And if you had to change one part of the middle, you would have to sort of copy it on a different tape, change it, and then sort of dub it back on. Here, you can just move stuff around. It's a puzzle, right? You can slide over, change the beginning, etc., etc. And you edit clips, not media files. This is critical. These are clips that are in your project and your timeline. You're not affecting anything on your media. Your media files stay just source, right? So when you're editing in your timeline, you're not affecting those. Editing points, basic editing. We did that, marking the in and outs, right? That's how we identify the beginning and the end of the shots we want. Basic 3-point editing, right? You mark 2 points in your source, and then you mark a third, or you locate where that is going to go in your sequence, right? We're going to use some of that tonight. I think we used this a little bit where we could type in the time code and then hit enter. I think we did that the other day. We did those shortcut keys, I&O. Insert overlay. I think we just did an insert. I'll show you the overlay button. And the most basic transition is a cut, right? Not a dissolve. Dissolve is like the most second basic transition. A cut is just a shot ends, the next shot starts. That's what we did the other day. And then transitions, we'll get into this not tonight. And then there's some shortcuts that you can take a look at. And then we have a Mac version of this as well. Okay. So that's what all that is talking about. Okay. Let me just keep that handy in case we need to jump back to that. Okay. How's everybody doing? PAL stands for phase alternating line. There you go. Did you already know that, or did you have to Google that?
No, I Googled it, but
Okay,
it
very
was
good.
something with phase.
Well, I'm going to tell you a very quick story, and I won't bore you guys with a bunch of war stories because I have a lot of war stories, maybe later, but I'll give you one quick war story. When I first worked for NBC, they sent us at the last minute. It was the Spanish. It was a Spanish service, so we were going to Colombia, and they told us at the last minute, so we had to scramble, get the equipment. We go there. So we're in Colombia, Cartagena, very pretty place. We were covering this summit. So we bring our US, editing decks. This was before non-linear, no computers, huge 100-pound, machines. So we edit our story and we go. And when I asked my reporter, I said, where are we feeding? Because we had to put it in a machine and put it up on the satellite. He said, oh yeah, we're feeding at from EFE, which is a Spanish broadcaster. And I said, okay, well, will they have a NTSC machine? Because they're PAL. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm sure they figured it out. I'm sure NBC, worked this all out. So here we are, we're flying through Cartagena, go there. I walk in, I'm already have a bad feeling, right? The guy's got the Spanish accent, which is fine, right? And I'm like, you don't have an NTSC machine, do you? He goes, no, we're PAL. So I put it in anyway, and what you get is just the snow, just like that hash. And I'm like, okay, so we had to run back to the hotel, right? And we had a driver, but he had like a little Nissan Sentra, right? So this is a huge machine. So I put it in the anvil case. We had to throw it in the trunk, bungee cord it, and fly through Cartagena every day. So we had to factor in another 10, 15 minutes to do all that and then get there, hook the machine and feed it. So there you go. There's your standard story. Okay. So if you ever work with someone, say, okay, who's in charge here? Sorry about that connection dropped. Okay. Anyway, so okay, so there's standards, there's that. What else? Okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and now if you've got this open, let's go ahead and close your project, right? And then we're going to start a new project with to start project one, and then we're going to talk a little bit about settings and that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in. And actually, if you want, here's what we can do. You can actually just close this. You go up to File in the upper left-hand corner. You don't have to completely exit, right? Because you can exit here and you'll exit the program completely. But you can come right here to Close Project. Again, every time you pull down these menus, you're going to see a bunch of shortcuts. Okay. So Close Project. So that's going to close what you got there. And then it's going to bring you back to the welcome screen eventually. Okay, here we go. Okay. So I'll let everybody get that. And so now we're going to set up our actual project one. And this is why I wanted to make sure we all did it together. I'm sure some of you would know how to do, but we also have names that we give these things consistently through the projects. Everybody okay? All right. Shout out if there's any issues. Okay. All right. So we're back to the screen, the welcome screen. Let's go back in and we will do just what we did the other day, except now we're going to save this project in our project one project files, right? Okay. So let's go new project. And here's the basic naming convention that we're going to use throughout the semester. You're going to name this because this is the PRJ, PROJ, PRJ, right? So use your first initial, last name. I like underscores, and do P1. I'm going to do caps. You don't have to do cap. So first initial, your first name initial, last name, underscore P1, underscore, and just call it summer 2025. So when we do project 2, it will be basically the same thing, but you'll just call it P2. Okay, now location, very important, right? So this is defaulting to the exercise folder, which we used the other day, but we need to reroute that, right? So I'm going to click the drop down, choose location. Okay, and I'm going to go back into my folder. There's project 1, and this is a project file. So that's why we have that folder. We're going to save it in here, right? Hit open. And there's your name down here that you just named it. And you can see that the type .proj. So you hit save, and that will go into that project file folder once we hit create. And then it will automatically, I think it pretty much automatically will create that auto save in the render file. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if it's actually there. A1 clips. Where are we? Okay, hang on, let me go back into project 1. Okay, so you go into project file. Okay, so it hasn't done anything. I think once we bring in some clips and do some stuff, that I think it creates those folders, but they will create. But there's your project file. It's already 7 kilobytes. You got nothing in there, but it's not going to get that much bigger. All right, so everybody see that. I want you to make sure. So if you say, hey, I lost my project. Well, why did you lose your project? Right? You've got to, pay attention. Okay, my security team is barking. Anyway, all right. So now we see where that is. Okay, right. So now before we move forward, let's see. Window, workspace. Is everybody looking at the same workspace that I am? Because we're going to change this. Okay, just a little bit. Okay. Is everybody seeing? Let me ask this. Is anybody seeing a different workspace?
Can I use my own workspace, or does this part you need to do the same as yours?
What does yours look like mine?
No. Okay, I'll change it to.
Well, hang on.
Are you?
Don't change it. Here's what we're gonna do. So, because what I'm about to do, well, let me ask you this. So when you go to workspace, right? When you go to workspace, window workspace, hang on a second here. Right, so you go into the main top menu here, right? And you go to window, and then you go to workspace.
Yeah.
Do you have this one highlighted or the selected? You have the little dot next to it? Because you
Did
might
we
be
save that yesterday? I don't even know if I made that one.
okay. You know what? Don't worry about that. Let's do this. Okay. So I think I saw Enzo did not have the same one. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. So everybody follow me, and we'll make it the same. Okay. Because this is not personally my default workspace. And I think you're going to find this a little bit easier because it makes, we're going to move the project window up, and then we're going to extend that will extend the timeline because we want a nice big timeline. All right. So watch me first. Okay. And I think we kind of started doing some of this, reworking the workspace. But if you looked at any of the tutorials, it also covered this. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to grab this project panel, okay? And I'm going to grab it. Hang on a second. Grab it here. Wait, will this grab the whole thing? Yeah, okay. All right, so for example, I've got two panels docked, meaning they're stacked together. They're occupying the same space, right? And I just kind of click it. They're like file folders, right? Okay, so if I hover over here in the right, in the upper corner, you see my pointer, and you see that's got two little like white squares below it. That's going to allow me to click and drag this up and reposition it and rework my workspace. Okay, so watch me for a minute. And if I go forward, whatever's highlighted, this purple, if I let go right now, then it's going to also dock it with the source and the effect controls and the mixer. But if I just slide it a little bit to the left and kind of position it here, I'm still keeping my finger down, right? I'm dragging. Then it's going to put it to the left of the source. And when I let go, it repositions it there. See? So I've got that, source, and program. And now I've got this tool palette, which is way bigger than I need to, right? I'm just going to slide that in. And now I've got like nice a big timeline. So this is a more optimal, in my opinion, editing workspace. So I'm trying to get everybody so we can at least look at the same workspace. Okay. So I'm going to put this back and try it again. So I'm going to go back to reset to saved layout, which will put me back into this workspace. Reset to saved layout, right? So it's gonna drop it down. So now try it again, right? Again, these are all docked, right? So we're only moving wherever, if you already have your project panel to the left of source, then great, then you're good to go. And you should have, this is what it should look like, right? So I'm going to grab it here, click, drag, push down and drag and go to this left, like this beveled left side. And then I let go. And now it butts it in there, kind of inserts it. Okay, so I've got project, source, and the highlighted panel is the one that's in the forefront. Program, there's nothing sharing with the program, which is fine. Timeline, tool palette, I just make it narrow, and we're not really working too much audio tonight, but you know, it's good to have your meters. Okay, so how is that working for everyone? So that's how you can reconfigure your workspace. Okay. Is that making sense to everybody? Yeah?
Yeah.
Sure.
Could I see it one more time? I'm
Yeah,
almost
definitely
done.
should. Hang on. Because now we're going to save it as a new layout. We'll rename it. Okay, so I've got it. Don't worry if you don't have effects, we're not going to really worry about effects right now, but that's just kind of like bundled in. So you want your project panel upper left, your source kind of in the middle, program, and then you've got the timeline down here. You got your
Yeah.
tool
Okay.
palette. If you don't have the tool palette there, you know, it's not the end of the world, right? And then you've got meters. So is that making sense?
Yeah. Is this?
Okay, so now let's save this as a workspace, right? We'll go Window, Workspace, and we're gonna save as a new workspace. Okay, so I'm gonna let anybody, you can name it whatever you want. I'm gonna name it, I'm gonna use my initials, and I'm gonna call it Summer 2025. I'm gonna call it editing, as opposed to like an effects workspace, audio workspace. This is my basic editing. And you can always add panels to this, right? So, but we'll leave it at that. So I'm gonna call it that. You can call it whatever you want. You just have to remember what this looks like. And when you actually start editing, you can use whatever workspace you want. You can reconfigure that. But while I'm showing you stuff, it would be ideal if we're all looking at the same panels in the same place, right? So I'm going to hit OK, right? So now that's saved, and of course it's highlighted. So if I, do this, I go captions. Let's see what that's going to look like. That's going to probably really throw it out. Let's see. Let's see. It's taking a minute. It's not responding. Hang on. Okay. We're gonna do one of these. So you can see that pretty much changed it, right? Because that's dealing with captions, and you can see the project panel down here, timeline. It actually gave me the graphics templates. These are very cool. We're gonna get into those on project 3. But no problem. I'm gonna go back and go back to my summer editing, whatever. And if for some reason you screw this up, like you close that panel by accident, and then you drag this over here, and okay, I'm really all messed up here, right? You accidentally close that panel. Now you've got you got no timeline, no source. Go back to window, workspace, reset to save layout. It will go back to this. Okay. So again, this is damage control, and damage control is important when you're an editor because stuff happens. Okay. I'm just going to do a quick Control S. Okay. All right. Everybody okay? Still awake?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Now we're going to import our clips, and we're going to start setting up our project and do some editing. Okay. All right. Let's go here. Boom. So go ahead and import, right? You're going to project manage. That's nice that they added this. And by the way, you can import here. You can also just double click anywhere. You don't have to click on that button. You can also come up File, and there it is, File, Import. And on the Windows, it's Control I. And on the Mac, it should be Command I, right? Because Control is Command. And you can even, if you have, let's say you had like 2 screens, you had like a huge screen, you could actually have, you can actually do this, project 1. Actually, I think I can do it right from here. I can go into project 1, video clips, and I can actually do this. I can just grab it here and drag it right into the project panel, right? So I'm going to do one like that. Let's see. Should bring it in. Maybe it's taking a second. Or maybe I have to hit that. There it is, right? So there's that folder. And these are little columns. If you want to extend that, think of it like a spreadsheet. So there's my first batch, right? So I just dragged it in. So some people just like to have those 2 images, right? So now I'm going to double click and bring it the other way using the navigation window or the Windows Explorer window, whatever they call this. So this is in a different place. I'm going to find my project 1, video clips, and I'm going to grab, I think I brought in project clips batch 1, the second batch, right? And I'm going to hit import folder. That way it brings in the whole folder with all of the clips. Okay. And this is already organizing your project panel, right? Because you want to extend that logic into your project, just like you created those folders on your hard drive. Try to keep this as clean as you can, because this is where you're going to really be editing, right? So yeah, you can pull these out. You can have all these floating around, but this just makes it cleaner, right? All right. So let's do a Control S, Command S to save, right? In case we crash, right? And so now we've got our clips, and now we're going to go to our script. So have that handy. If you want, if you have like a, whatchamacallit, if you have a, an iPad or you want to use your phone, it's ideal if you can look at it on a separate screen, and then you can stay in Premiere, right? But it's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up, and I will show you. Let's go screen. There's my script. And if you want, you can put it in your D drive if you want, right? I actually did. I actually parked it here. There's the P1 Project 1 timecode sheet. So I'm going to open that. I just kind of dropped it outside of those folders, right? But that's basically my script. So let's open this up. Okay. All right. And basically this is actually, these first 3 shots are pretty much exactly what we did the other day, but we have more exact time codes, right? So this is where we're going to mark the in point and the out point, basically what we did the other night, but we're going to go through 31 clips. And some of these clips will go back into the same clip and find a different area of that clip. Okay, so before we start that, so I'm going to keep that handy. Okay, let's go into a couple things I want to show you in Premiere. Let's go to Edit, and we go down to Preferences. This is where some of the stuff, again, I don't usually mess with this very much, right? Okay, let's go Preferences and General, and then you'll be able to go through different things. So this is just the basic kind of like behaviors, okay? So for example, let's start up, show home, opening a project, show open dialog. When you open your bins in your project panel, you have options, open in place, open new window. Again, I don't really mess with this. I kind of keep it by default. The only thing I might mess around with, appearance. Yeah, you can do different themes, light, dark, etc. Autosave, there's that autosave that we looked at earlier. So by default right now it says 5 minutes, which is not bad. That's pretty good. Sometimes it's 10 or 15. But again, you want to be saving more than that, right? And then you have maximum versions. Autosave also saves the current projects, also saves. That's fine. That's really all I'm going to mess with right now. Okay. So, but you know that those preferences are there. Okay. All right. So there's 2 ways we can create a sequence, right? You see your timeline is empty, but we need to have a sequence. The other day, what we did is we just grabbed the clip and dropped it in there. And so the idea of sequence settings is to have it be optimal for the video clip. So Premiere is pretty smart, which means you can just grab a clip, and in this case, this is not always going to be the case, but all these clips that we have in these folders, they're all the same format. They're all the same resolution. They're high definition, 16:9 aspect ratio, and their resolution is 1920 by 1080, which is standard HD. That's the pixels. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. All right, so another way to do it, and that's what we did the other day. For example, you don't have to do this right now, but for example, I can grab just this clip and I drop it in, and it figures out what the format is, right? What the properties is of this clip, and it picks the best settings that it perceives to be the most optimal settings for this sequence. And so if I go up to sequence, and I can check my settings, right? So I can see what it just did, because now it created a sequence, right? You have it's calling it car because it's got 1 clip, and then these are your sequence settings. Let me bring that down. Okay. So it says custom, you can see the time base. So when you say 29.97, basically round that off 30 frames. You can see the frame size, which is our resolution, right? Frame size 1920 horizontal, 1920 pixels, 1080 vertical, 16:9. Again, when you buy a TV, that's going to say all this stuff. Sometimes it might say 720, which is a lower sort of form of HD. It's giving you some other things, pixels, fields, that's fine. We'll talk more about that later, the sample rate, etc. And there it is again. Okay, so now the other way to do this, I'm going to actually close this, and it created a little sequence, but I'm going to delete that. Okay, so you don't want to have anything in there. If you did that, just close out that sequence, delete the sequence in your project now. The other way to do is actually go into sequence. Hang on a second. Go into File and go New, right? And then you come, sorry. And then you come down, where is it? Did they move this? Sequence, there it is, sequence. Again, there's your shortcut, Control N. Click on that, and then you're going to get a whole list of presets for different formats. And this is one of the reasons Premiere has been so successful, as they say out there. It plays well with others. It can pretty much, you can open up broadcast. You got a lot of different HD. Some of these they say 2398, that's 24p, and it's got these other audio settings. This is pretty much what we're working with. You've got social media presets for sequences. Then you've got 4K, and then here's legacy. There's a lot of legacy, right? We're working with something probably right around here, right? ABC HD 30, etc. So basically, you can do this, for example. You can select your sequence. And then you go down here and click OK, and then it creates a sequence, right? But sometimes when you drop something in, it may or may not interpret it as optimal. So you can say clip mismatch warning. The clip does not match the sequence settings. Change sequence to match the clip settings. So you can say keep, or you can say change sequence setting. So it is now adapts and it optimizes what it perceives to be able to play that clip, even though it takes a second. Okay, so that's two ways to create sequences. Okay, I'm gonna again close this out. I'm gonna close that here. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that, right? Save project. Okay, so that's the part going under the hood. It's good to understand that. All editors have to understand some of this stuff. You don't have to be IT experts, but the more you understand of that basic theory, it's very important. Okay, because it helps you solve problems. Okay, like if you have an offline clip, like, okay, what happened? Did I move it? Did I delete it? And you can bring it back in and relink it, and I can show you that in another time. All right? Everybody all right? Okay, now we're going to really start editing. Okay, so let's go in and grab that first clip, which is pretty much the same clip we grabbed the other night. It's keys 1, right here. And that's your endpoint. Okay. And now we're going to just drop that in at the very beginning of the script, the timeline. Okay, hang on a second. Where are we here? Okay, hang on, I'm just pulling up my script here. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And I'm gonna lead you through it, but if you want to kind of jump ahead, that's fine too. Okay, I sent this to me, now I can't find it. Okay, hang on a second here. Okay, project 1. There it is. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you're just gonna hang on, let me share the screen. That way I can just jump back and forth. Okay. 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 Here we go. Okay, so we're going to bring that clip in. I'm going to make this a little smaller. Okay, move that out. Okay, we're going to come here, keys 1, which I can't remember which batch. Oh, you can also, for example, you have a little search window. You can do keys, and it shows you anything that's named keys. So that's also a good way to search. You don't have to like root through those folders. But once you've used that clip, right, you open it up in your source, then you want to make sure you clear because you won't be able to find anything else, right? So there's our first clip, right? Let's go to the timecode 1328, right? So as we did the other night, we can drag the playhead to that point, or we can just type it in, right? This is known as a hot text field. Anything you see in blue like this, that means you can click on it and change the value. Okay, so in this case, we can just type in 1328, hit enter, right? And you can hit either enter on your main keyboard or your numeric keypad, and your playhead's going to go to that specific frame, right? We'll mark it here, right? Right? That's our in, and now the out point is 1722. So this won't always be the case. This is an example of doing a very technical edit where all those edits have already been figured out for you, right? Right. So I typed it in. Hang on. Let me move that again. Again, if you move it, you just go back in 1722, hit enter. The playhead goes to that point, and you mark out. Right. And so now, since it's our first clip, I'm just going to grab it. You just grab it in the center, drag it down to your timeline, let go, and it's going to butt it up right to the very beginning of your timeline. And it will create a sequence which it perceives to be the best optimal settings for your clip, and then it names it. So now, rename the keys one and name it, I would just go ahead and do the same name as the project, right? Right? P1, summer, whatever, summer _ summer caps, summer 2025. Okay, so now that's that sequence. Okay, and you can always duplicate this if you need to make changes. I'll show you later. So let's go ahead and continue going down the list. And so basically what you want to do here is reposition the playhead at the very end of this. And we talked about magnification, the plus minus, right? That's magnifying. You can also magnify down here. These little sliders, right? Wherever your playhead is, if you drag that out, it will magnify. Actually, that's demagnifying, sorry. That you can also zoom in like that. So if you don't want to use those plus minus, again, that's two ways. Okay, and there's also, must be tucked away here somewhere. I think there used to be a little eyeglass here that allowed you to magnify that, but I don't see it now. Anyway, okay, so we want to go to the last clip. So I'm positioning my playhead and I'm using my left, right arrow keys, right? Remember we talked about those? So you want to see the playhead sitting at the edge, and then you want to see black. If you're on that, if you're one back, then you're sitting on that last frame and you're going to overlap that. So you want to butt it up against that. Okay, so you leave that there. Then we go to the next clip, which is keys 2, and that in point is 804. And you can see it's even the way it's even written. There's no value here, so you could just do 804, or you could just, you don't have to do the OH, just 804, right? So let's go to keys 2. Let's just do keys again here, right? There's keys 2, double click. Right, give it a second. It's going to come up in your source. And what did I say here? 804, right? So you type in 804, boom, mark in. I use the I, the keyboard, right? The I key and the O key, and the out is 1124. So that's already marked, right? Highlight, click on it, 1124, hit enter, right? And you can see that I'm just opening the door. I'm going to mark the out. And then, of course, this adjusts to show the duration of this clip. The original duration was unedited, and now it's showing you the in and out. It's about 321. So now, the easiest thing to do, since you have your playhead already positioned at the end of this first clip, you can do an insert. Click this button, this command. You want to make sure the V and the V1 and the A1 are lined up with V1 and A1, because that targets those tracks, right? So when you dropped it in, it goes to those tracks. Now you can't see the first one because I'm still magnified, so I'm going to I'm gonna click in my timeline and I'm gonna hit my minus key. So now I can see those clips. And remember, you can hit the backs backspace key, right, to resize everything. Okay. And so now, if you've moved your playhead and you want to get it back to the end here, then just hit that down key. Let me find, hang on a second. Let me get those pictures, right? Right. Let's get the PC keyboard and the Apple keyboard. And by the way, this is not how most projects will work for you. We'll do this on project 1 and we'll do it also on project 4. Okay. Let me open these up. Okay. All right. Okay. So, for the Mac folks, right? These are the keys: previous edit, next edit. So this key will jump you. It will do this, right? It'll go to the next cut, or the next edit, and then you can drop the next clip. If you want to go back, hit the top key, and it goes back, and then you hit it again. It keeps going to each cut point, right? So that's a cut, that's a cut. So now we're sitting on the second clip, right? And for the PC folks, hang on, where's the PC ones, right? Same kind of thing, right? Page up, page down. Okay, so those are really nice navigation shortcuts. Okay, all right, let's do the third clip, walkout, which we used the other day. All right, so I'm just going to go find it. It's in one of these, batch 1. I've got a bunch of clips here, so it's not in batch 1. It's going to be in batch 2. And there it is, walkout, not walk into frame, walkout. Okay, so that's me coming out the door. Okay. So this is endpoint is at 3013. The out is 3428. Okay. All right. So 3013, hit enter, mark it in. And the out is 3428. Hit enter, sends the playhead there and mark out. 4 seconds and 16. I'm going to click here. And also, when you want to activate your timeline, don't click on the ruler. This is the ruler, because it will, your playhead will follow your mouse. It always follows your mouse. So I always click here like an empty track, which won't move your playhead. So I'm going to hit that down arrow so it can get repositioned. And now I'm going to hit the minus key so I can have a little bit more room in the timeline and I can see these things stack up, right? So, and remember, if you want to double check your edits before you drop them in your timeline, you can use these. Go to in, go to out. Okay, so go to in. Okay, 3013. Yeah, that's what it said on the script. Go to the out, 3428. Boom, drop it. There you go. And you can see automatically the playhead repositions at the end of that recent clip, which is really nice. So if you're pretty confident, you can just keep going. You don't have to even move the playhead. I would recommend saving after every edit, and then we keep going. Okay, so now we're going to go to clip 4. Let me check in with everybody. Okay. I just found out if you have number keys, you can type the time without clicking on it. Yeah, right. You want to have your number keyboard. You can type the time without clicking on a time code number. I think you're on a Mac though, right, Dominique?
No, I'm on a PC.
Okay, right. So I mean,
It's just a
yeah,
little quicker than just clicking it.
yeah, but you
every
have
time.
to. Let me see something. Oh, it does do that. Okay, they may have added that recently. Yeah. So, but it's good to do this because a lot of times you have multiple hot text fields and you sometimes you have to click on them. Okay, so you can do that too. There you go. Okay, that's that's one less step. So very good. So I'm always happy to share any shortcuts anybody finds. All right. I see a hand up for Layla. Thank you for that, Dominic. So folks, you can do that or you can type it in and whatever. I have very fast hands, so I just tend to click a lot. Layla, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I
Question.
was wondering, where can we find the time code sheet to look at it on our own computers?
Yeah, I emailed it for everybody.
Oh, it's in the
I
email.
emailed
Okay.
it. I emailed it with the Zoom link because I resent the Zoom link. So maybe I said that before you were on. Yeah. So that's and I will always send the Zoom link usually about a half hour before class, just in case somebody can't remember what that is or loses it. Okay, so that's there.
Thank
Okay, so let's go share again. Okay. All right, so now next clip is walk into frame. Okay, so find that again. If you're moving faster than I am, that's fine. Go as fast as you can, or go whatever's comfortable for you. I'm going to take you through the end of this first page. Okay, and then we want to buffer some time for some other stuff that we want to talk about. So walk into frame. There it is. Right? And I'm just so used to clicking, I'm just going to keep clicking. And that is the end time is 1608. And or actually sometimes it even highlights, right? 1608. Okay. And there's the end point, mark that. Okay. And so this is also, as we mentioned at the end of class the other day, this is also incorporating continuity lesson, a basic continuity and screen direction. If you ever shoot action, it's important to understand some of these things. What? What? He's over here. You can go with Mom. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay, the walkout. There's the in. The out is 1802. And mark out. And again, if your playhead is in the right position at the end of the previous clip, just insert. We could also do an overlay because there's nothing here, but if you have clips and if you do an overlay, they wipe out, they replace what's there. And insert will go in between clips. We can demonstrate that later. Okay, so keep saving. Next clip is low back Volvo. Okay. I don't know if that's, yeah, there it is, low back Volvo. It's still thin. It's in this batch two, right? So this is a reverse angle. So you can see also, for those of you who are interested in shooting and shooting action, if you look at the raw material here, for example, I can always go back here and pull this up, right? And that's going to show me my in and out points. And I'm just going to scrub through this. You can see that I go all the way to the car and I actually get in the car. But we don't keep the shot that long, right? And the reason I do that, that's why everybody does that, because you overlap the action and it gives you more flexibility to when you want to make the edit, right? So now the next shot after walkout, let me reposition that and look at this raw. I come all the way, well, of course, I'm setting the camera. I'm going back to do my roll, okay? And in this shot, I come all the way out of the house, right? Let me go back. It's kind of like buffering a little bit, all right? So you see that I start way over here. Well, I don't come out of the house, but I'm like basically overlapping this shot. right? So we cut from that, boom, and now we're coming to the car. And I again get in the car. But we're gonna cut before I even get into the car. Okay? Hang on, I saw a question there. Hang on. Zora, was that a hand?
I don't have enter Volvo. What batch was that at?
No, it's low back Volvo. Oh, you're
The
already
what?
on Inter Volvo. It should be in there. There it is. It should be in batch 2. If you want,
I don't.
you can make these a little bigger. You can slide this little ring. It should be in batch 2. Or just type here, enter. See if you see it that way.
I don't see it in the email folder either.
You don't see
Like
it.
like the email that it says batch 2 download.
Yeah. You don't
Is
have
it?
that, but you don't have that folder?
I have the folder, but I don't see the that file in it.
Is anybody else missing that? Did you do a search here to see if it even shows up? Maybe it's in the other batch?
For me, it's in batch 1.
What's that?
For me, it's in batch 1.
Okay, maybe it's in batch 1. Yeah, so just type here, and also make sure, like, if you double click, so now you're only in that folder. See, so be careful there that you don't do that. You see, so I double clicked, and now you have to go back up to that next level, right? Where you're seeing both those folders. So if you double click the
Okay, I
folder,
found
now
it.
you're inside that folder. You're only inside that folder. You see, and then you go
Gotcha.
back up.
Right.
So is that making sense? Do you find it okay?
Yeah, now I found
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so low back Volvo. What am I? Low back Volvo. Here's low back. What is that? 2819. That's my in, right? So I'm continuing the action from that low angle, and the out is going to be 3020. Okay, mark it out. I drop it in, right? And if you want to, preview that, you can just play that little section, right? Again, you're seeing the red, yellow line because it's going to need to be rendered. So it might play a little hiccupy right now, like for me it is. And you could always render just a small section, right? So yeah, it's definitely hiccuping because, yeah, but I'm pretty sure I know I've been following the time codes. And if you double guess, if you want to go back and even double check, you can go back to any one of these clips. For example, I can go to keys 2 and double click it in the timeline, and it pulls it up in the source, right? And it's going to show you the section that I edited, but if you pull these rings out, it reveals the rest of the clip, right? And you can always go like this, go back in and double check your endpoints, right? So when we'll do a measurement at the end of page 1, and we should all pretty much be within a few frames, pretty close to the same time, because everybody's doing the exact same thing, right? Okay, so low Volvo, what did I just do? Low back, okay, enter Volvo, right? It's kind of like enter Sandman. There you go. Let's see, where is that? Enter Volvo. So now, this is a different angle, right? So I'm breaking up this action as I get into the car. Hang on. That's 4822. Okay, mark in. So I'm literally just about to open the door. And also, once you do this edit, look at all the continuity. My left hand is opening the door. On this previous shot, I use my left hand to open that door. You have to be very cognizant of that when you're shooting action. Again, free little production.
Are you supposed to
lesson.
be sharing your screen?
Oh, I'm not
Does it-
sharing. Sorry. Yeah, I confess. It's that news editor thing. You just kind of like want to keep going. Okay, yeah. So anyway, so this is enter Volvo, right? And I'm cutting right as I'm about to open the door. And you can see that I'm using my left hand. And when you look at once you do this edit, you'll see the previous shot, I'm using my left hand to open that door. So that's that continuity mind that you are thinking about when you're shooting. So again, that's a little free production lesson. So the out is 5150. And you can see that most of these shots are pretty short, right? They don't last that long. So now, boom, this is like 2.5 seconds. I'm going to insert, boom. I'm going to leave my playhead there. It repositions. I'm pretty confident on my time code. I can always go back and clean that up. Then next shot is a keys insert. So this is kind of like a very basic example of a master shot and an insert shot. Okay, keys insert, keys insert. There it is, keys insert. This is a close-up as I am putting the keys in the ignition, right? So that, again, overlapping, getting in the car. In that previous shot, I go ahead and put the keys in the ignition, but now I'm going to cut before that. So this action looks very natural. Okay, keys insert 821, 821, 821, enter, mark in. The out is 1122. Okay, so again, pretty short, pretty quick shot, right? Let me double check that. 821, 1122. Yep, that's it. Okay, I'm going to drop it in. Save. The playhead repositions. And now we're going back to enter Volvo, right? So that's the first time we're going back into a previous clip, but we're marking a different point. And so you just reset those in and outs, and it doesn't affect your previous edit or anything, okay? Right, because now we're cutting back to that other shot, that sort of like establishing shot, right? After I put the keys in the ignition, 5412. Okay, see, you can see the previous in and outs. I'm just going to reset, do type in the time code, hit in, and it marks it. And then 57 is the out. Okay. Boom. Again, about a 2.5 second shot. All right. All right. And then let's keep going. And then we go back to, oh no, this is the first time, Volvo pullout. Okay, this is, I think, a low angle shot. So you can see there's a lot of different angles. And when you shoot stuff like this, you want to have different angles, because if you don't have, if you don't change your angles, you're going to have a bunch of jump cuts. You have to have different angles to create continuity and move a story. And a lot of this is a very basic example, but this has a specific pace, it's like get out, get in the car, drive down the road. Okay, Volvo pullout. That must be in the other one. Let me just pull out. There it is. Okay. All right, so this should be like a low angle shot. Yep, so we cut outside the car, Volvo pullout 2208. Again, if you want to go beyond the first page, if you're already ahead on the second page, that's fine. I'm just going to guide you through this first one so everybody can at least have the same start. 2408. Oh, that's right, 2406. Okay, 2406. So again, pretty short shot, barely 2 seconds. Let me double check that. Yeah. Okay. So the idea is by cutting different angles, it just keeps the story moving, right? So I'm at about 26 seconds after this Volvo pullout shot. A Volvo pullout, Volvo reverse. I'm going to type in reverse. There it is, right? Gives it a second to, yeah. And so there's the reversal shot as I'm pulling out 3910, 4115. 3910. Oh, that didn't work like that. Yeah, so that's, there you go. 3910. 3910. 4115. Mark it out. 4115. Oh, I did 415. 4115. Okay, 4115. I am dyslexic on this one. 4115. There it is. Out. Okay, again, about 2 seconds. Okay. So I'm running out of like empty space on the timeline. I'm just going to drag this out so I can kind of see my my edits. And this is a perfect example of what we looked at a minute ago in the PDF. This is a rough cut. So we're just stringing, we're just assembling the shots right now. And we're not going to get too complicated on this because this is a pretty simple project. So now we go to driver 1. All right, so let's just do driver 1, right? Okay. Driver 1, 1214. Okay. And so for the record, I had to shoot this myself. I had no help. I had the camera on a tripod. I had it like strapped down to the passenger seat. And my lighting was actually my iPhone with the flashlight. Okay, so how's that for low budget? Driver 1, 1204, and the out is 1411. Right, so just a quick kind of insert shot, interior shot. And it also gives me a way to cut to something and then cut back and show a different angle as I'm pulling into the driveway. Okay, so this is where you could get confused because you've got driver 1 and then driver 1, car 1, car 1. Just keep track where you're at. If you have a piece of paper or you want to just like list, 1, 2, 3, 15 and check them off, and then you're not duplicating a shot. All right, so that was driver 1. Now I'm going to car 1. Right? But you will also know if you mistake, because if you repeat a shot, and by the way, I just dragged that into the source. You can also do that. You can double click or also drag it in there. So now this is kind of an external shot. I'm pulling into the driveway. This is car 1, 3314. Okay. So you don't have to rush on this. Okay. And 33, and the out is 3520. Okay, boom, save. So you can see editing can be very repetitive to build something basic rough cut. Now we go back to driver 1, right? Oh, and by the way, you can also do this. If you click up here, hang on a second, right here, you can see if you've just recently used the clip, it gives you a list of recent clips that you've just grabbed. So that's another way you can go back to a previous shot that you just used if you don't feel like digging around here, right? So what is this? What's my next one? Now I'm getting lost here. Hang on a second. This is what? Car 1. Okay, yeah, it's that one. Okay, so that was car 1. Now we go back driver 1. Okay. So I can do this. Hang on, let me go here. Let's go back to driver 1, right? And my time code now is 2006, 20 seconds. Let's try that again. 20 seconds in 6 frames. Okay, so it's 20 seconds into the clip, right? And you can see that all these clips start at 0. That won't always be the case. In this case, it is. Okay. 2006, 2207. 2207. Out again, pretty quick shot. Try to keep the story moving. Okay. That was driver 1. Now we go back to car 1. Let me go ahead and do this. Car 1, there it is. Okay, car 1, 3811. Right. So you can see that we're coming back and forth and we're continuing, we're picking up the action at a later point in time. Okay, 3811, 3919 is the out. Okay. So that was a pretty quick shot. Let me double check that. 3811, 3919, 3811, 3919. Yep, drop it in. There it is. And my last shot on this first page, driver one again. Driver one. I think this is the Vin Diesel shot. 2504, 2504. Yeah, here we go. Okay. And 20, this is a little longer. It's about a 5-second shot, 29:29, which is almost 30 seconds, right? Right. So we put the shades on. Okay. So that's a little longer. All right. So if I edited this correctly, right, then I'm going to check the duration at this point, right, with the first clip starting at 0. Right, and going to the end. And by the way, you can use your home and end keys on your numeric keypad. Well, if you have a numeric keypad, you might have to take it out of the numeric keypad and you can hit home. That sends it to the very beginning, and end sends it to the very end of your sequence. Okay. So now I'm getting 4103. So at the end of that first page, if you edited everything according to this script, you should be at 4103. If you're off by a couple frames, it's not a huge deal, okay? But you should be right about at that point, right? 4103. Well, 4102, 4103, okay? Right? And so we've got all these angles. We've got the continuity going back to here, right? Right, let's go walk into frame. Right, so you can see I'm coming out. Actually, I switch my hands here. It's in my right hand. And then, and this, you see here, I switch it. I actually switch right here to my left hand. And then I grab the door. I'm going to magnify this. All right, go frame by frame. I'm grabbing the door with my left hand, and that is a reverse angle. So realize that when you're shooting this, or anybody is shooting this, that could be several minutes in between. That could be 10 minutes. That could be 30 minutes. We could have taken a lunch break after this shot. Okay, where are we picking up? We have to move the camera now, right? Unless you're Hollywood, you have like, I have a lot of money, but most independent, small budget people have one camera, so they have to move the camera and reposition it. Anyway, enough of that. So there you have it. Let me check in. Is in batch 2. Okay. Is this making sense pretty much? This is pretty straightforward stuff. Anybody having any questions on this? Making sense? Okay, now I'm going to show you in case you make a bad edit or you're off sometimes, and when you maybe do the second page, I think I have another sequence where I have the entire sequence so I can kind of time that out, but we can also time that out on Monday. Let me show you how you fix something. I've shown you how you can double check your edits, but let's say you bring something in and it's maybe too short. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go right here in the middle. Okay. Right. So let's say I took this too late. Like I'm just going to trim this. And by the way, this is trimming where you hover your mouse. Don't do it now because you're going to adjust your endpoint, but we'll do some of that later. Okay. So now I've made this shot shorter. So I'm coming in. I've pulled my key out, but now it's a little later, right? I'm not coming off the ignition on that shot. And anyway, I'm going to do a ripple delete here. You don't want to do this now, but we'll do this later. So I'm pretending that this is my edit, right? Okay, so I've gone through. I'm going to go to the end here. I'm going to jump all through those cuts. And now I'm like, well, I'm like about, what, a second or two short, right? Okay, so what happens? So I know I checked all my edits. So let's, I go through my edits and then I go to, which one was this? Driver one, no, it's back here. Enter Volvo, right? So I double click that and I'm going to check my endpoint, right? So right now it says 5516. What was the endpoint on that? Right? Enter Volvo. And also, by the way, you see the source, you see your sequence, and it always shows you the source right here, enter Volvo. If I click keys insert, if I double click it, shows keys insert, right? So it shows you the sequence and the actual shot you're looking at. All right, let me go back. Right, we're going to go back to 55. That's actual keys insert. Okay, so that was supposed to be 5412, right? And let me check the out point. The out point is correct. So my in point is late, right? I need to come earlier. So I can reset this, but here's the problem. I don't have any room here. If I try to extend this or bring it earlier, it's gonna butt up against this. So there's a couple things you can do, right? What you can do is, I'm going to minimize this. You can click and highlight everything, select, right? Right? Click and drag, and then just include those clips. And you can grab anywhere and just drive that, slide that over to the right. Okay? Pull this up, go back to your endpoint, and reset your endpoint. Well, actually, you want to release that. Sorry, you want to release that. So now you're only working on this clip, right? Right? Double click it. You're up here. Now you're in here. And what was that endpoint? It was 5412 right here, right? Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to type in 5412. Playhead's going to come back and I'm going to reset the out, right? Let's see. I moved it about 2 seconds, so I should have plenty of room. You want to move it, with plenty of room. And now when I reset this mark in, it's going to extend that in and it's going to extend it here in the timeline. Watch. See? So now you fixed it, right? Now you're at 5412 and now you have a little gap. No problem. You want to have a gap because you gave yourself room. Now you can right click in that gap and you get a ripple delete. You click on that and it snaps that hole and brings everything together. Okay. And so that's a clean edit where you can fix it. Okay, so that's a little damage control. And all of those things, they were not adjusted. They were not changed. They just slid together as a clean ripple delete. All right, it just follows everything. That's what they call it, a ripple. Okay. All right. So now, let's take a look at our project panel, at our actual project file, right? We've brought in about 2 gigs of material, and you can always right-click on any of these and check out the properties. Where are the properties? Media file properties. You can see just one of these clips is about 278 megabytes, right? So there's a lot of clips, all right? Let's just double check, go back to what we were looking at earlier. Share. So we can look at our project file right now, right? We've imported all this stuff. Project 1, okay. Here's our project 1 folder. Let's open up project file folder, and you can see the autosave. I haven't done any rendering, but now if we render, we'll see that. So I think when we first created the project, it was 7 kilobytes. But now it's 34 kilobytes, right? So reiterating this, let's look at your video clips, right? This folder here is almost 2 gig. This folder is 2.25 gigs. So it's like 3.25 gig, right? But again, just to reiterate, these are not actually, they don't actually live in your sequence. they're linked because you imported them, and now, of course, you've dropped them in the timeline. Okay, so this is different from, for example, a lot of you are graphic designers, right? This is very different than Photoshop, right? You bring a bunch of stuff in, you have a bunch of layers, effects, whatever. When you copy or transfer a PSD, everything comes with it, right? This is different in Premiere, in video editing, right? How we get this out to show the world is we export, which is what we're going to do on, I keep thinking Monday, Tuesday, right? Once we're finished, and we're going to finish this up with a timeline, with titles, etc. And then we will convert it into an MPEG-4 that we could put it on, for example, on YouTube. Okay, so that's different. All right, any questions so far? Did the edit work okay for everybody?
Yes, it's taking a little bit more time than usual, but
That's fine, that's fine. Again, you don't, if you didn't get through the first page, that's fine. You don't have to turn this in, okay? We're gonna save this now. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to get into before we close this out. Okay. Right, okay. What do we got? 7:54. Okay, let me think here if there's anything else I want to show you. Just some other navigation. Yeah, let me show you a couple things. And then we're gonna actually take a look at some projects, and examples of projects that we will be doing. Okay. Samples of like project 2, project 3, etc. So you can see kind of where we're headed. Let me show you just a little bit more navigation here. So for example, if you want to create a bin, you can come here, new item. Okay. I'm sorry, that's another way to create a new item. So that duplicates this new file, new, right? You can also come here, sequence, and there's a bunch of things. You know what? We're going to create something right now, and maybe just add it now so we can get, because we're doing okay on time. All right. If you want to create a bin, there's your bin. Boom. You can name it whatever you want, right? Bin. Okay. In fact, let's go ahead and create a bin. I'm going to stop that and do it again. Let's create a bin. Click it again. There it goes. And it's highlighted. So let's call it bars and tone. Okay, that's another. This is kind of TV stuff. So let's double click into it. Let's clear that so we don't get stuck in car. And then let's go to new item. Click on that. And then we're going to come down here to this thing called bars and tone. Okay, when you click that, you're going to get a dialog box. It wants to, whenever you create something down here, it's going to ask you, do you want to match what you're doing here? Yes. You want to match the settings of your sequence. Yes. So that's automatic. You have other options, but no, we want to do this. You can see our resolution, 1920 by 1080, frame rate, etc. And I'm going to hit OK. And this is what this looks like. Double click it, and you've seen this, right? So this is a form of torture, and whenever you create this is, by the way, also known as synthetic media. It will give you 5 seconds, but this is endless. You could extend this for hours, right? But it just gives you, by default, a 5-second clip. Okay, so this is something we use in broadcast television. Without getting too far into it, it's generally used to, for example, engineer cameras. When you watch a talk show, right? And they have like 5 or 6 cameras, all from different angles. They have the host, they have the audience, they have guests, they have maybe a floating camera like a Steadicam. And so one way that they use this is they put up this signal on all the cameras, and they make sure that all those colors match on each camera. The engineers go in there and tweak it. It's more than color balance, white balancing. They're actually making sure that all the tones are right. So when they cut from camera to camera, someone's skin isn't like a little bit more green than the other camera, or darker or warmer. So they match this to make sure that the production looks consistent. All right. So, and then this tone, you can see it in your mixer and your meters. That's giving you a reference, which means you put that at the beginning of your show before you say run your show. You set your levels to that tone, and everything else in your project should be referenced to that level. So your show shouldn't be too low or too loud. More on that later. Let's go back into new item, and then let's do universal counting leader. This is basically a countdown. Okay, there it is. Again, it's asking, do we want to match your settings? Yes. Fine, hit OK. And then it gives you this. And it's basically a countdown. And you can change all the colors here if you want, right? You know, pick your favorite football team or sports team or whatever. Generally, I deselect this, the blip out. I deselect that, and then I hit OK. Okay, and now if you double click it, it opens back up. So what you want to do is you actually want to drag it into your source, and it starts here, right? And then it's gonna give you that stuff, and then it starts from 8, and we're gonna insert this at the very beginning of our project in a second. So go ahead, drag that in, and we're gonna set that up and insert it into the very beginning of our story with that insert button. Hang on a second here. Let me do a quick save. I have some questions here. And here we go. Okay, questions. Yes, new 3 messages. Okay, cool. Always wondered what this was. Is that necessary to do? We're going to use it. We're not necessarily using the bars and tone, but it's important to understand that if you work in television. Okay. We are going to use the countdown because I use a countdown every single day when I feed my story out on the on a service, because it gives stations a way to queue up their story. They know that, you know, when they're doing a live show, they know that, okay, we can queue this up for like 5 seconds or 2 seconds, and we have a queue that we can hit play, and then we can hit that story on time, right? More on that at some point, but that's more of a live production. Did that answer your question there, Enzo? So sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's not critical. That doesn't air, by the way. Okay, that you never see that on air. And way back in the day when TV was not 24/7, you would see bars and tone, color bars. We call it color bars. And those, by the way, are NTSC color bars. So they're meeting that whole standard. You would see that at like 2 or 3 in the morning. Believe it or not, TV was not on 24/7. It actually ended at like, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning, 2 o'clock. So anyway, can I see how we do the countdown again? Yeah, we're going to do that right now. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so, all right, let's say if we want to create the countdown, I'm just going to head and delete it and create it again. So we go down to new item, right? You can also go up on file, right? And you have a countdown there. So either way, boom. It's going to give you this. It's going to ask you 99% of the time, you're going to say, yes, yeah, I want to match my sequence. Boom. There it is. You can color whatever you want. I just take these out because I find them annoying, these little audio cues. And then I hit OK, right? And then if you want to, now we're going to mark an in and out point, but you want to drag it in because if you double click it, it opens up. So now we're going to put the endpoint at actually what's going to be the 5, which is technically timecode 6. Okay. So look for the 5 or just type in 600, boom, and that's 5. And then you mark it in. You don't mark it out because when this counts down, it goes down to 2 and then it goes black for 2 seconds. That way, that gives a little margin of error where you won't see the 2, but stations know, okay, sometimes they'll cue it at 5, sometimes they'll just cue it at 3, and then they can time it out. They go 2, and then they have 2 seconds of black, and then your piece is going to start, what we call first video. Okay, so you can see now you've got 5 seconds. So you've got that set up. Now take your playhead, put it all the way back to the beginning, right? However you want to do it. You want to just drag it there. You can do the backspace to resize, right? You can hit home, and you're always going to see your time code here, right? So there's your playhead position. So you're at the very beginning, okay? And also, one thing you want to have here is always engaged is right here, this little function, okay? It's grayed out. Oh, no, you want it grayed out. So that means it's turned on. What that does is it gives you that snapping feature, okay? So you can do this, all right? We'll use that a little bit more later, okay? So put your playhead at the very beginning at 0, right? And now we've got our countdown, and now we're going to do an insert. And now you're going to see the insert, how it actually works. I'm going to actually magnify my timeline. And I'm going to drop it in, and it's going to insert itself before this first clip and push everything out. So it will add 5 seconds to our total duration, right? Insert, boom, there it is, right? And see, it moved everything back because it inserted it and it pushed everything back. So it adds on to our sequence. And you play it through, right? It's going to count down. We're going to go to 2, 1, 2, first video, boom, and our video starts. Okay. And if we go to the end, hang on a second, let's take that out of there. So now we're about 46 seconds and 3 frames because we added that. Now, if we had done an overlay, then it wipes out part of that first clip, you see? Right? So pretty obvious, right? So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to reinsert, and there we go. Okay? So if you want, whatever you've done, if you want, you can, and this will also create the preview files. I'm going to position the playhead at the very beginning, and then I'm going to go back to the end, a little bit past the last shot. I'm going to mark O, and it marks automatically an in and out. And that section, we're going to render, so it's going to play a little smoother. It's going to be more optimized. And it's going to play natively at the 30 frames per second, depending if the computer is behaving. And then we go up to sequence, and we do render into out. Okay, so we'll click this, and it's going to take a second. There's not really that much to render. It's just kind of processing the video, so it's going to play a little smoother. This will take, it will vary how long it has to render depending on what you're doing. As we get into more complicated sequences where you have multiple layers, a lot of effects, motion effects, God knows what, transitions, all of that has to be processed. And that's why computers have to be powerful, because they have to handle all that stuff and then play it back. So this is taking about 1.5 minutes. And sometimes it will start telling you that it's going to take 5 minutes, and all of a sudden it drops down to like 2 minutes, and it winds up being about 1 minute and 15 seconds. So, and you can see the green line replacing the yellow line. That means it's rendered. Right? And you can always just render a small section. You can mark it in and out and just render that section. If you wanted to check like an edit, that might come in handy as we get into project 2, depending on your computer. Okay, so this is going to be done here in a second. You can also expand this, render details. So it gives you, you know, how much time, it gives you how much free disk space. And that this could be where sometimes maybe you have an error when you're rendering or even when you're exporting, right? So you always want to have a decent amount of space on your hard drive because that can give you an error. And then you would have to figure out, you have to delete something to make some room. Okay. So now it's going to be playing. It should play much smoother, right? It still kind of hiccups a little bit, but once you export it, and there you go, right? So you have your sequence, clean cuts, and you also, what you don't want to see is any flash frames. Let me explain what a flash frame is. Let's go through, watch this, and we're going to put music on this. So some of this audio, it's pretty low. Why it's so low? It should be a little louder. So I'm not sure what's going on, but we're going to cover that up with music. All right. So there it is. So it goes to the endpoint and it stops. Okay. So do a Control S. So now I'm going to jump out of this bin because I was in this bin, right? And also I'm going to create another bin for sequences, right? So I'm going to create a bin and I'm just going to call it sequences. Again, this is good. This is good practice. I'm going to just drag it in there, right? And then I'm going to duplicate this. Oh, hang on. I'm going to right click on this and duplicate it. And it's just going to call it copy, right? And you can open that too. So you can have multiple sequences in the timeline, but you want to be careful with this because I'm going to like mess this one up. So I don't want to mess this one up. So I'm just going to close that out, right? Okay, so now I'm working only on the copy, and I'm going to show you a couple potential mistakes that you might make. Okay, so for example, let me show you a flash frame. Okay, so let's do one here. Okay, so let's see. I'm cutting to this shot, right? Wait, this is the low angle shot. Okay, right? I've left the frame, right? So let's say by accident you drag this, you drop this in, but maybe you somehow had like an extra frame of this after it, right? So let me show you. Okay, so let's go here. Just add like one frame, right? I'm gonna mark that right there. Okay. And let me go find one of those shots. Let me get out of here. Okay. I need one of the keys, the previous shot, right? Keys one. Let's say keys one. Let's say, for example, okay, even if it's one frame, okay, say this looks like this might be two frames. So I'm going to insert this right here in between these two shots. Okay, and actually that's two frames. I'm going to even make it shorter. I'm just going to trim that. And I'm going to ripple. Okay, so this is a flash frame. Okay, if you see anything like that, that's a mistake. So let me just start from the first two shots, right? Okay. Hopefully it'll play smooth. Do you see that? Okay, watch. Did you see that like little flash? That's one frame. That it's a stray frame that somehow got moved. Maybe you made your edit at the very last part of this clip, and that got pushed back behind the edit, and so you've got a flash frame. So, and then you magnify that, and you can see, oh, there's an extra shot there. Okay. So that's a mistake. So you don't want that. And also, if you have a black hole, even and you may not, if you demagnify, you may not see it. It might look like a clean edit, right? Right? But then you play it through. You see that was a flash frame. Well, technically that's a black flash frame. Okay. All right. So there's a couple things to watch out for. Okay. because those are mistakes and you don't want to make them. So basically, we can add more tracks, right? We get 3 and 3. I've already added a few more tracks, so I've got about like 5 or 6, right? But let's say I want to add some more. Okay, I'm going to push this up so I can expand my timeline. All right. You can reposition your video and audio tracks by clicking in between video 1 and audio 1, right? And you can sort of like redistribute that space, right? So you can see more of your video tracks. This area here at the very beginning is called the track header area. If I right click here, I can add tracks. I can add 1 track, delete an audio track, delete track, and add tracks. I'm going to click here so I can add several. So I'm going to add like 3 more. And you can see that's highlighted blue. Just type 3. And then here, if I want to add another audio track, that's fine. I can select where I can add that. I want to add it after 6 by default. I'm going to add it down here on 4. So I'm going to have 5 and click OK. And it just added those tracks. So I'm going to push this down and you can see that all those tracks are here. And you can also resize the height of your tracks. It doesn't adjust anything materially yet because I added 3. So now I've got 9 layers because I had 6 and I added 3. And then if I come down here, and then there's shortcuts for this. I can't remember. I think it's I forgot. It's control Y or something. And then you can also make those audio tracks slimmer. Okay. All right. So there you go. So that's a little navigation, moving around in your timeline and adding some tracks. And then the last thing I was gonna you did see when I demonstrated the flash frame and the black frame, right? The mistakes. I was sharing that, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's important. That's really important. Okay, all right. So let's go back here and let's add black to this bars and tone, right? Right. So we go into that folder. Let's go to new item. Click on that and we go to black video. Going to ask you, yeah, match the video settings, click OK, and it actually gives you black video. And you double click it, it's black video. And it gives you 5 seconds. You can make it 5 minutes if you want, right? But that default, that's a preference. And you can change that preference if you create anything, what we call synthetic, you can make it 10 or longer, but you can still extend it, right? So that's there. So let's go back. So we've got those 3 items in the bars and tone. You've got your clips and you have your sequences, right? And if you want to rename like the main sequence or V1 or V2, however you want to name it, just you have to make sure that if you create duplicates, then you want to make sure you're working in the one that you are intending to work in. Okay. All right. Let me blow that up. Okay, so now we've got this done. So let's go ahead and save. And we can actually just completely close this out. Okay, as long as you saved. And then close it out. And so now you can open that up if you need to continue and add those other clips and finish up for Tuesday. Okay, all right. And let's do this. Let's get out of here. Okay, so now what I wanted to do is show you a couple things on Blackboard since we're coming up to the end. So hopefully we can at least take a look at some sample project 2s because we're going into that next week. So if you're ahead of the game, if you get this done pretty quickly, I would highly advocate to go and start thinking about your project 2 because as I mentioned, this is accelerated class. We're going to be overlapping projects, right? In project 2, you have to your creativity is going to jump significantly from project 1. You're going to make a lot of decisions. You're going to come up with your own idea. Anyway, let's go to content here. Okay, we looked at week 1 materials. Okay, let me go back to course content. Okay, so in week 1 video tutorials, right? We covered some of these. I mentioned these that were up, covering the kind of stuff that we did Tuesday, basic panels and stuff, but I added a couple more. This is actually a 1-hour tutorial that guides you all the way through project 1 step by step. Setup, importing clips, editing, rendering, and exporting. You don't have to do this part. Just if you need to, if you'd rather not watch what I did tonight, you can open this up, and this will basically walk you through the edit. And take it all the way to where you finish the edits. Don't do the rendering and exporting, because I want to do that Tuesday, because I want to lead everybody through that and explain a few things when we do that. It's a little quicker here. And then here is a basic sample export. It's got a watermark. I'll just pull it up, and it basically shows what your piece should look like. Now this runs about 146. I can't remember if it has the countdown. It does. There's my Niners, 49ers colors. We can argue about that later. Anyway, so this is the full edited project, right? Right, and that's with the music. This is what it could look like if you want an extra reference. Okay, so it gives you an idea as a reference. And at the very end here, we kind of do a still and we change the color and add a title. I don't know if we're going to do the still, the freeze frame, but we'll definitely add the title. And then this is where the black comes in. We dissolve and fade the black nice and clean, with the exception of the watermark. Okay, so that's there to give you some guidance. Okay, and if you're ahead of the game on that, then feel free to jump into, we will cover this on Tuesday. We'll start covering this, week 2, project 2 materials. All right. So this is the second assignment that is created. And this is like a little commercial, right? And this has a little bit more detail. You're going to come up with a lot. You're going to design this. You're going to create the fonts. You're going to create motion. This is a much more jump in design and creativity. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Take a look at this. And this has some core project requirements, some rubrics that you have to meet, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and then you'll have to write a proposal. And then we get into the keyframing and motion effects. And here's some samples that you can also take a look at online. But we're gonna take a look at a couple real quick here. Okay. All right, so that's some stuff on project 2, and there's some video tutorials. Again, feel free to jump ahead. I'm not going to slow you down. Project 2 goals, and this is where, by the way, we put all the Zoom sessions at the bottom of the course content. So I'll add tonight's on there tomorrow. Okay. All right, so. Let's go back. Let me, well, we have about 8 minutes. They've got that. The project 1 is due Tuesday. Project 1 is due through the second page. Yeah. We're going to finish it on Tuesday. So you want to get all those edits done on the script. Does that make sense? Right? Go all the way through to the end of project page 2.